Ciudad Juarez, the 1990s, the most violent city in the world. One DEA agent went undercover when no one else would. This is Border Static, Narc Agent Stories. And now, your host, former DEA Special Agent, Sal Martinez.
This is Sal Martinez. Welcome to Border Static. I'd like to follow up on a topic I mentioned in the last episode regarding motorcycles. I kind of gave the negative aspects of riding a motorcycle. And the reason I kind of did this is that I wasn't concerned with the riders themselves, but the other people that have a hard time seeing a motorcycle on the road. And that's why the motorcycle rider has to be vigilant and aware of all his surroundings and anticipate vehicles pulling out in front of them or tailgating them. So that's why I brought up some of the negative aspects, but there's some great positive aspects about owning a motorcycle. I owned a couple, and there's an awesome sensation of having a man and machine in the open road, especially out on the country roads. There's an adrenaline surge, and it's a great sensation owning a motorcycle. I loved it. I was scared a lot of times, so I ended up getting a Jeep. I got a Jeep Wrangler. Took the doors off the first thing I did, and I just don't leave them. I don't put them on anymore. So year round, I'm driving around in a red Jeep around the San Antonio area. That's me, and jamming out to a lot of classic rock. But it's a safer ride because I still have the sensation of the open air. Okay, simple question. How many of you have never committed a crime? Never exceeded the speed limit? Never lied on your taxes? Never ran a red light? Of taking anything of value, even from your employer? Pen, paper clip, paper. There's a saying, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody hears it, did it make a sound? In other words, if you weren't caught, you shouldn't consider it a crime. That you took something and nobody found out about it, nobody hurt. So if you believe that you have never committed a crime, then you must be the Messiah. I want to hang out with you. If you are honest and admitted that you have committed a crime, then consider yourself a criminal. You could have been arrested, prosecuted, and again, labeled a criminal. Let's say you're in a public place like a restaurant or a movie theater or a Walmart, and you accidentally bump into somebody. It was unintentional. It was an accident. You may or may not say, I'm sorry or excuse me. But you walk away, no harm, no foul. You didn't mean to bump into them, so again, you didn't think much about it. However, the other person thought otherwise. They felt that you intentionally hit them or you scared them, and they felt threatened, so they called the cops. Police arrive, take their statement, and that person says that you intentionally did physical contact with them and maybe even threatened them. So the police officer will end up writing the report, and he'll take it to a judge, and a warrant of arrest will be issued for you. And you're driving around thinking, forgot about it. However, this situation sounds ridiculous. But in the bond business, I've gotten out several people who have actually experienced this. They go on, you go on living your life, not thinking about what happened. However, there's a warrant of arrest for you. So the cops aren't going to notify you and give you an invitation and say, hey, come to the station and give us your side of the story. They're not going to mail you a notice that you have a court date or you have a warrant for your arrest. They don't do that. So one day you get pulled over for a traffic violation, maybe running a red light or maybe speeding or something. And the police officer comes up to you and asks you for your driver's license. The officer gets a driver's license, takes it back to his patrol unit, and runs a criminal history check on you. Within a few minutes, he comes back and asks you to step out of the car, and you're asking, why? He goes, you have a warrant for your arrest. And you say, well, I have no idea what you're talking about. Well, you do, and I need to go and take you in. So you get arrested by this officer. He handcuffs you, places you in the patrol unit, and it's going to take you to local jail. You're asking him a lot of questions, but the police officer doesn't have that information. They just know that there's a warrant for arrest, and he's doing his job. He's taking a criminal off the streets because there's a warrant for their arrest. So he's just doing his job, and he doesn't have any details of the elements of the crime, when the warrant is issued. So you get taken in the car and placed in the patrol unit, and you watch him call a record company to come and get your car and get it towed away, which eventually you'll end up having to pay several $100s just to get it back out of the impound. So as you're taken to the police station, again, you're asking questions, you're waiting, maybe he did or did not give you an opportunity to make a phone call. So nobody in your family or friends know that you have a warrant for your arrest or you're being taken in to a jail. At the jail, you get processed, they fingerprint you, and take photographs. They give you an inmate number and an FBI number that you will have forever. You're likely to stay overnight because a judge is not available to read you your rights and set the bond amount. In smaller towns, they usually come in the mornings, the following day, and magistrate everybody that the jail has in custody that had been arrested overnight in the last 24 hours. By law, judges have to see people who have been arrested within 48 hours, and the bonds could be anywhere in the thousands. So when the judge is available, he'll read you the rights, and then from there you want to tell him your side of the story, but the judge doesn't. It doesn't matter. I mean, maybe he might listen to you, but they have a certain standard of setting bond amounts in each area, in each county. So for something like this, an assault charge, probably be in the thousands, some low thousands. Once the bond amount is set, then he's going to go on. The judge will read you your conditions. In other words, you cannot travel out of certain areas, or maybe there'll be restrictions from people you can communicate with. There's certain areas that you may not be able to go. So you'll have to abide by this until you go to court, which will be either a county court or a district court. There's places that you can't go, like you can't consume alcohol in certain places, or you be near a weapon. You're restricted from doing certain things in certain places. And this could last for years until you close your case in a court of law. Regarding getting out of jail, the jails cannot accept cash. So a lot of people say, well, hey, I want to pay my $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 bond by giving the money to the jail direct instead of using a bond company, because bond companies generally charge 10%. The jail does not want to be responsible for accepting thousands of dollars in cash every day and then having to secure it. It's not something that the jails want to do. That's why, like I said, more than likely you'll have to use a bond company. If you don't use a bond company to get out of jail, if it's a misdemeanor, you're going to stay in there for 30 days. Then they'll let you out on a PR bond, which is a personal recognizance bond. It's between you and the state of Texas, and that you will appear in court. But 30 days is a long time. For most felonies, it's 90 days. So if you don't want to pay for the bond after 90 days, most felonies, it'll allow you to go on with a PR bond. Other aspects of the arrest, you might have missed work. You need to notify your supervisor. And in most companies, you tell your supervisor, that supervisor has to tell his supervisor to cover himself regarding you maybe breaking the regulations in the organization, which could be a small company or it could be a large company. So they'll have to go on and go through the chain of command. So you wait, for an answer from somebody regarding the situation, and you're not getting them. Nobody's listening to your side of the story. So I tell a lot of people when I get them out, there's 3 words they need to know: arrest, charged, convicted. Okay, so it's arrested, charged, and convicted. They've only been arrested. They haven't been formally charged by the prosecutor, which could be a county attorney or district attorney. And they definitely haven't been convicted, which will be down the road regarding after the plea deal. Sometimes people wait years in order for them to go to court and complete the court hearings. In the meantime, you would be out there on bond waiting, again, abiding by the travel restrictions and certain areas that you cannot be attending or being seen at. Again, if the police see you there, they're going to charge you with violation of the bond. They'll rearrest you, and you'll have another charge. In my business, I'm a lot more lenient than other bond companies. If the judge tells them to do certain things, I'll tell them, okay, bye whatever the judge is telling you. But as for me, you're a free man, you're a free woman. Go do what you got to do. You just don't get in trouble. And if you do, then it's on you. And that's where we have to discuss whoever's going to bond you out the second time or third time. If I have somebody who's chronically getting in trouble, then do we really want to be spending this time and money and effort on somebody who's a problem child? You're going to be embarrassed because your arrest was posted on different arrest websites, in which for the world to see. And it depends who looks at these posts, but they spread it out through social media. Even small towns that have local newspapers that'll have little sections regarding arrests and bookings in the local jail. Your name will be on there, and it's going to be very embarrassing. So the scenario I've just given about getting arrested and not knowing that you had a warrant out there, it happens all the time. It's not hypothetical. I bonded out several people in similar situations. I had somebody who was driving, and he bumped into a car. Something happened where he struck a vehicle, and then he got out and looked and didn't see much damage, so he went on his way, not realizing that somebody had seen him hit that car, the parked car. They came out, they called the cops, he got his license plate number, and he didn't know he had a warrant for his arrest for months. Somehow or other, it got to him that he got pulled over, and he was arrested and went through the process I just described. Another one was a lady who was coming out of the grocery store, and she thought her daughter had paid for the groceries, and she went to the car, put it away, and next thing you know, the daughter had not paid, and she had thought that the mom had taken care of it. So I had to bond her out after that for a theft charge of groceries. And it was a misdemeanor. It depends on the amounts, again, regarding theft. But if there's felonies, and of course the bonds are going to be a lot higher and a lot more grave circumstances. But more than likely on nonviolent offenses, people don't go to prison. So I assure a lot of my clients to take it one step at a time and to do damage control and figure out what was the reason for all this and what are the repercussions, which they could be lifelong. Regarding also the assault, there's different types of assault. It's a simple assault, assault by contact, assault causing bodily injury, and these are all misdemeanors. But you have some that are aggravated assault, and those are the different variations about somebody using a weapon or actually grabbing somebody by the throat. That makes it a felony. It's not like the old days. I mean, you get up there and, throw punches and everybody's okay with that. However, now, people, if they're going to get in a fight, it's just don't grab a weapon and don't put your arms or hands around the throat of the victim or the person you're upset with. The county attorney and the district attorney are the decision makers on how they're going to pursue this. And they could take it, two different levels depending on the elements of the crime. So this what comes down to it. People are so sensitive now, and it's frustrating because if you say something verbally and it can be considered a threat. If you touch them in any way, just a finger on them is actually an assault charge. So it just shows that if somebody says something about you, it could be taken to a level of criminality, and that's where you go through the process. And that's why it's so you got to be real careful about the way you are with other people now. And it's a defensive mechanism that we have to realize that sometimes a stranger is not a long-awaited friend. You got to be careful what you say to people and how you act with them. Here's another example of our system where this elderly gentleman he flew in from Michigan. He wanted to come and see his son. He hadn't seen him in years. In the meantime, the son had got married. and he had a child, him and his bride. So this gentleman, we're going to name him John. He came down and he flew down, paid the airfare, rented a car at the airport, and he went out to a rural town outside of San Antonio. There was one slight problem, is that John and his daughter-in-law, which he had never met, there was some form of animosity. He didn't know why, they just couldn't get along. So, but that wasn't going to stop him from flying down to see the newest member of the family. He wanted to see his granddaughter. So when he was invited, after he landed in the small town, arrived in the small town, he ended up going to their house for dinner. Stayed there for a couple hours. He had the grandchild on his lap and playing around like any grandfather would do with a baby or a young child. After a while, John returned to the hotel. Gets there, gets comfortable. The next thing you know, there's a knock on the door. He opens the door and there's 3 police officers. They pull him out, they yank him, they throw him on the ground, they handcuff him. And he said, "What's going on?" He goes, "You've been accused of sexual indecency with a child." He goes, "What are you talking about?" "Well, your daughter-in-law said you got a little bit too affectionate with her child, so she's filing criminal charges against you." So John didn't have any other family here in town. His brother wasn't taking the calls from the jail, so he called me. I bonded him out for like a $30,000 bond. And bond companies generally charge 10%. That's a lot of money out of his pocket. He could barely afford the trip down here. I worked a deal out with him and helped him out financially in the long run. But when I got him out, he cried nonstop. He says, "My son won't talk to me." In his words, that wife of his hates me. And just because I had my granddaughter on my lap. And he goes, Sal, "I did not do anything bad to my own granddaughter. She's making it all up." So after I took him back to the hotel, he ended up flying back to Michigan. It was nearly a year before he went to court on this accusation. The court hearing took years. He was going back and forth to the court hearings. If not, the judge would issue a warrant for his arrest out of Michigan. So it was expensive emotionally, psychologically, and financially. So after nearly 3 years of this nightmare, he was found not guilty. And the whole time I was wondering if his son was going to help him out, but it didn't look like the son was going to back him up, and he's going to abide by whatever the wife was accusing him of. This is, again, an example of our system, of the American judicial system, where it's guilty until proven innocent. Somebody says something, and there can be, and you can suffer grave consequences. The situations that I have described, again, are unbelievable in a lot of ways, because you want to have faith in our system and the people that are part of the system, but unfortunately, it's a bureaucracy that has ruined many lives. And again, there's always 3 sides to every story. You have the complainant, you have the defendant, and then you got the truth in the middle. But it goes back to a simple accusation. If somebody doesn't like the way you talk to them, or maybe it was inappropriate by even touching them. There was a story of an administrator in a school that he was patting one of the student athletes, congratulating the student athlete for winning the game or something like that. Somehow or somebody along the way, or somehow or other, they accused him of saying that he was too sexual with the student. And I think he lost his job. I'm not sure exactly what the outcome was of that. That wasn't mine personally, but to even think of somebody trying to do something nice and for it to be turned around and made into a criminal act it doesn't seem fair. With the scenarios I've given, if it comes down to it, you got to know do damage control. And that's what I try and enlighten my clients when I bond them out. You've got to go on and go through the judicial process. Again, understanding that your side of the story will never be told, and have to deal with maybe probation for years. And again, and some of the words I tell them is, you got to kill people with your kindness. You can't be putting on social media that, well, they did this wrong or they did that wrong. You're just going to add fuel to the flame. I tell them just to stay under the radar, to be humble, and eventually the nightmare will be over. Now, if it comes down to where you got to do prison time, then that's a whole different level of animosity that you may have towards our judicial system. I want to finish off the program by giving my condolences to the Quinney family. Marvin Quinney was one of my first highway patrol partners in Wilson County, and I consider him the ultimate gentleman. His wit, his humor, his compassion. Anybody who knew Marvin knew that he was definitely blessed. Jim Stewart was his partner. Jim is now the sheriff in Wilson County. I want to thank him, and especially his booking section. They always take the time to help me with what I need whenever I need to get somebody out of jail. Jim Stewart and Atascosa County Sheriff Jay Guerra also, I want to acknowledge him because they treat me with respect. And that means a lot to me because I'm just a lowly bondsman in this whole process in this area. Also, their booking section is also, I appreciate them giving me the time when I need to do my thing. You're listening to Border Static with Sal Martinez. I wanted to explain a little situation regarding how people feel that it's their constitutional right to get a phone call when they get arrested. In other words, they go to the jail and say, well, I want my free phone call. I want to talk to my attorney. You don't have that constitutional right to make a phone call. The booking section will provide you with a call when they deem it's necessary or when they have time. People have the intention or belief that the jail has to accommodate them, like if it's a Holiday Inn. I said, well, I'm here. I'm a taxpayer. You need to accommodate me by giving me my own cell. Some people have actually told these people that. And let's say some of them even have medical issues. I need my medications. You're going to be liable if something happens to me. So the booking sections get a lot of static from people who expect them to take care of them, even though they're the ones who are in the wrong. Again, innocent till proven guilty. They've actually had people say, hey, you need to bring me a blanket and a pillow. And also you need to go on and provide me with a meal before I go to bed. And there was these type of situations that booking have to deal with every day. My heart goes out to them because, again, they're dealing with people that don't want to be there. It's like I said in the previous episode about being a law enforcement officer, people don't want to see you. You're going to ruin their day when you're pulling them over. Same situation with the booking sections of jails. They expect to get accommodated overnight, and in fact, they're going to be spending the night with other criminals like them, and it's not going to be very comfortable. They feel like if the law enforcement officer, when he first arrested you, he might have been rude. He didn't, maybe he put the handcuffs on too tight, and you're not upset. You're upset that he did not explain why you were being arrested. So you might think, you know what, I'm going to try to sue this guy. My attorney's going to follow up with this. Same thing with the booking section. You feel that they didn't provide you with a phone call. They put you in a cold cell. They didn't give you a blanket. They were just rude. People think that they can sue entities like this, which is almost impossible. I want to finish off the program and thank you for listening. My name is Sal Martinez. This is Border Static. If you want to know more about my past in law enforcement and other aspects of my life along the border, you can get the book that I wrote, in my own words, about the life of a law enforcement officer. It's called Narc Convictions of an Undercover Agent. You can get it on Amazon for $19.99, and there's a significance to that number. So I wrote this book because I wanted to explain to people about the American judicial system as well. That, again, I tell people it's guilty till proven innocent. There's a lot of insight that I experienced firsthand. There is situations that very few in law enforcement have gone through, and that's why I wrote this book. Go ahead and get your copy today. Amazon for $19.99. One last thing. You find out who your true friends are when you go to the hospital and when you go to prison. If you know anybody who's in the hospital, don't just text them and hope you feel better. Don't text the family, how's he doing? Do something, be proactive. Take them something to eat, send them flowers, help them out financially. Just go that extra yard and help people out whenever they're in those two situations. Thank you for listening to Border Static. My name's Sal Martinez. Take care.
You've been listening to Border Static, Narc Agent Stories, featuring former DEA Special Agent Sal Martinez. Sal's memoir, Narc, Convictions of an Undercover Agent, is available only on Amazon. Join us for new episodes every Saturday at 2:30 p.m. right here on 9:30 a.m. The Answer. Or subscribe on YouTube and all major podcast platforms. Border Static. Real stories from the most dangerous border in the world.